우리 가게 홍보 편하게 할 수 없을까?
사장님, 가게 정보 알림 메시지를 사용해 보세요. 통화가 끝난 손님에게 메뉴, 영업시간, 주소 정보와 홍보 메시지가 자동 전송. 가게 정보 알림 메시지.
장사가 편해지는 디지코 KT. 가입 문의 1588-0114.
Welcome to Kids Culture Club, and I am just so glad because, we have removed Tuesdays and Thursdays from our live show. So I really got so worried that we might not, we might reshuffle and might not be able to see some of our guests that I've been so used to. So I'm so happy to see Jem with us here today for Kids Culture Club. Good afternoon, Jem.
Hello. How are you?
Yeah, I know we're going to talk about boundaries today. Now, I was laughing out loud with what Glenn said earlier on. What is timing boundary? Maybe, delaying giving the bad news, maybe after dinner or after dessert.
Yes.
What would you think is a timing boundary?
A timing boundary would be, oh gosh.
That is really difficult.
There's never a right time, right?
There's never a right time.
But that's true. People argue about, is it better to say it right away? Is delaying lying?
Yeah.
Who knows?
I know. Sometimes, there are things like timing boundary is, I think, something that you can actually say when you want personal space. Sometimes you live with your partner or your husband and you don't have kids and you were just, relaxing at home and enjoying your time alone, and then suddenly unannounced, here comes the mother-in-law.
Oh.
That's the timing boundary that I want to give.
You can't hear my heart beating fast, but it just started beating out of control. Even
See?
thinking about it.
See that?
Stressful, yes.
And I live with them.
She's coming today, guys, by the way.
Oh, okay, there you go. As
didn't even know.
as a daughter-in-law, maybe that's something that timing boundary should be, because a lot of parents-in-law here in Korea comes unannounced.
Oh, yes.
They visit without telling people that they're coming.
I actually had my father here in Korea with me 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
And my parents-in-law said, oh, we'd love to come up and see him. And I'm like, that's nice, but I just came back from abroad. My house is a mess. And
Yeah.
there's not enough space for 7 people in the house? So even thinking about it, I was sweating. So I need those
See?
boundaries. I
See.
said no.
Okay, now
Sorry.
that's where we actually have to, that's where I'm placing timing boundary.
Yes.
You have to announce that you're coming. You have to say that you're. I know a lot of people. I know of a lot of daughter-in-laws or maybe even son-in-laws who really get frustrated at times when, in-laws come unannounced.
Right.
Especially when, when you're trying to, relax on weekends and you were just,
right.
I'm thinking of not doing anything or maybe ordering jjajangmyeon for lunch or maybe, something for dinner and then poof, someone comes at the door. Ding dong.
Right. So that makes me nervous. I always have to keep the refrigerator full, right? Like, what if somebody comes? Oh, yes,
Yeah.
I have fruit.
Yeah.
All the time.
There you go.
Yes.
So, well, anyway, have you lived with your have you lived with your in-laws? Because I'm living with my in-laws. I don't know. It just comes out. Have you lived or have you visited your grandparents often when you were young?
Oh, so when I was young, I did have one set of grandparents. They were only about 40 minutes away. So they
Oh.
did come visit. But my father's
Not
hometown-
unannounced.
Not unannounced.
Okay.
As far as I remember, anyway. Who knows?
Okay.
But my father's parents lived about 8 hours away. So we
Oh.
would take a really long road trip just to see them. Usually the major holidays, either Thanksgiving or Christmas or Easter. Yeah, so usually like that.
Wow, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter. Sort of
Easter.
like Chuseok and Seolnal here in Korea
Right.
of sorts. And, we all love our family. So doesn't, I mean,
Right.
through thick and thin, though there's really a very thin line between love and hatred. But anyway,
Right.
love and hate. But through thick and thin, we try to, we try to be with our family, keep it together at some sorts. But anyway,
Together.
getting together,
Yes.
gathering with your family members sometimes tears it all apart. They
Right.
tear it all apart. So, the holidays can cause unwanted stress.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, me just mentioning it stresses you out already.
Right. I'm sweating here, but that's right. Whether it's our own family or our in-laws, being
Yeah.
with family is fun but can be stressful.
Yeah.
And you guys were talking about, it starts with the intrusive questions when you're young, right? What are you going to school for? When are you getting married? Are you going to have kids? If you have kids, when's the next kid? So,
Yeah.
a lot of us adults, we can handle it because we've been with our family a long time. But what about our kids? We introduce our kids to
Yeah.
our family, and there's a lot of things that we love about our family, but
Yeah.
we don't want to pass on to
Yeah.
our kids, right?
That's the thing. I
Yes.
mean, you don't sometimes, you teach your kids never lie. Don't lie. Lying is bad. And then, a relative comes over and says, 공부 잘하니? So, 점수 얼마야? 이번 시험 점수 얼마야? What's your score during your last exam? So, as parents, you wanted to impress your relatives as well and all of that. But, kids just say, oh, I had, 20 out of 100. And you'll say, oh, wow. I mean, you need to study. You have to send him to a hagwon and all of that.
And that'll start like the whole parade of
I
comments.
know.
That's right. But it really starts when you have kids. The unwanted comments even start when they are born, as soon as they are
They're
babies.
still in the tummy. They have a
Yeah.
lot to say already, right?
When the baby is in the tummy, they're telling you what food you should be having. People have told me, eat this food so your baby can have beautiful eyes or
What-
skin or hair.
What music you should be listening to.
Classical music. They always say, don't eat too much kimchi. The skin will turn orange. I've heard everything. But
The kid will turn orange?
oh my gosh, no, I'm not joking. I've heard that one. But it really starts with, when the baby comes out. I don't know if you experienced this as well, but a lot of family members, older family members, even elderly strangers will come over to your baby and say, oh, the baby is too cold, and wrap up the baby, even though the baby is sweating, covered in sweat.
Yeah. Oh my God. I just, because my son was born in July and it was summer here in Korea and our heater was on because I just gave birth and we have a
Yes.
baby in the house and they were wrapping the baby all throughout and they won't let me take a shower.
Yes, yeah, exactly that kind of thing. And they believe very strongly, like, oh, you have to be sweating it out. And not only that, you mentioned wrapping the baby. A lot of them say you need to wrap the baby in blankets and pillows, and they have to sleep like that. In the previous generation, we didn't know, but actually, that's one of the biggest cause of SIDS,
Yeah.
sudden infant death syndrome.
yes.
So you want to push them like, hey, please don't. But you know how kind of pushy
Yes.
elders can be. And not to mention the food. Have you ever caught your mother or your mother-in-law trying to feed any kind of strange food to your baby?
Anything that comes out of her mouth goes to my baby's mouth.
like a
You know,
bird.
she chews it for them and then gives them back.
In our case, my mother-in-law's from like a fishing area, so she gave the baby a lot of fish. They don't really recommend giving babies lots of fish or
Really?
also honey, cow's milk. A lot of these things are kind of off limits. So a lot of people say food is a really big boundary that their parents-in-law, grandparents, anybody tried to feed the baby cake, the kids cake or sugar or lots of like sugary things. And as the
You're
parents,
lucky if they're cake. Sometimes they give them soju.
Soju.
That's the worst thing. They just put this the chopsticks, dip it into soju and just put it in their mouth and they just have fun laughing looking at the baby,
Did you have a terrible experience?
I did. Oh my
Yes.
God.
Yeah, that's the family member.
I'm so sorry. My mother-in-law, God rest her soul.
Yes.
But yeah, that's what she did way back.
Right. So, a lot of people do feel the boundary about grandparents love to spoil their grandkids. Soju is one thing, but but things like that. So, food is one of them. But if we think about behavior of certain
that's
family
the thing.
members
Yeah.
too, right? So maybe in big family gatherings, people are drinking and dancing and maybe getting a little wild, using bad language.
Yeah.
So we say in English, potty mouthed, like
Okay.
toilet mouthed. If you have
Toilet mouth.
if you have
Okay.
a relative like that, you don't want your kids being exposed to that, right? So how about
Yes.
you? What do you think? How do you think you would handle the situation if you have a rowdy?
I mean, I think that I don't know how I would handle that situation because it never happened to me because I lived with my in-laws and my grandmother-in-law. I just talked about her earlier.
Yeah.
She was, my grandmother-in-law was alive, so everyone when they come home, they're so like respective of all of the elders. They don't actually we don't do bettings on, let's say, especially on holidays, even with yutnuri. We don't actually, a lot of people actually say, okay, maybe you can give like manon or ochonon or chonon or something, but then again, she won't allow that. So
I
everyone is
see.
well behaved, I think, because my grandmother-in-law was around.
I see. Well, I had the opposite problem growing up. Is that an American problem? You guys tell me. Feel free to comment.
There you go.
But yeah, sometimes language is an issue. So they do say, many counselors online, when we have these problems, they are our beloved family, but what do we do?
Yeah, what do we do?
So there is kind of 5 steps that counselors do recommend. Of course, first you want to start with what are the issues that bother you? What kind of issues make you uncomfortable? And number 2, prepare for the pushback. You might expect your relatives to say, oh, it's not that bad. Come on, no problem.
Yeah.
But then number 3, you have to tell them regardless, communicate.
This is like the scariest part.
Yes.
Because you don't know how they're going to react.
Right, but you got to prepare for number 2, right? And then number 4, stay consistent. You may push make the boundary once, but you can't say, oh, I'll let it go this time. You have to keep the boundary going every time. Otherwise, the kids also see that, oh, mom's a little bit relaxed about this.
So this is okay. This
is
might probably be okay.
Yeah. People pushing the boundaries. And then last one, let's say maybe the drinking or cursing. If you need to, just excuse yourself. You and the kids, okay, you guys have fun here. Me and the kids are going to go outside.
We're going to the kids zone.
Kids zone, yeah, safe place. If worse
Yeah.
comes to worse, you just
Yeah.
kind of get yourself out of that
Yeah.
situation, but still stay at the gathering is the
Yeah.
best advice.
But the thing is, I think this is something that might not work for every migrant wife out there. But, way back, I did not realize that. But these days, a lot of migrant wives are telling me actually that, they're a lot okay to say, no, this is not what, I wanted to do for my kids or this and that. And surprisingly, a lot of elders actually just understand them. They're from another culture. They might not know this culture. So, it kind of passes that way. So, we
Right.
have an excuse or something.
Right. Well, things like that too is like the sayings and the beliefs of the older generation is another one of the huge boundaries that people push is, older generation, right? They did live another way. And actually looking up this topic online, there's the baby boomer generation and the millennial generation, right? They say like Gen X and the millennial generation are the first who are doing parenting, talking about emotions.
Okay.
Like acknowledging and okay, you feel sad, you want to tell me why you're sad, versus the baby boomer generation was like, don't be a baby.
Yeah.
You already know.
울지 마. 남자는
Yeah.
안 울어.
Right.
It's just something, boys don't cry.
Yeah, like
something
boys
like
don't
that.
cry and yeah, don't be such a chicken, don't be a baby.
Yeah.
And that's the way they were raised. And so they're the grandparents now. So if I don't like boys don't cry, but grandpa says, oh, boys don't cry.
Yeah.
We kind of worry about, does that idea I can't say, oh, grandpa's wrong and mommy's right. Or, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
And sometimes, they would go for what the more matured, more, when it comes to age person, their ideas, they kind of follow. Well,
Right.
grandfather said that this and this and this and that.
Right. And then you have to say, okay, well, elders aren't always right, but you should also respect elders. So that's where it becomes kind of wishy-washy. And that's why you kind of have to be firm with your ideas
Yeah.
about what the boundaries are.
There you go. Now, that's when it comes to, beliefs and all of that. Now, we've talked about physical. This is something that is really so difficult to have a boundary on here in Korea. Like every single stranger
Right.
seems to have a right to actually pinch your baby.
Right. And you want to be polite, but at the same time, especially during COVID, right? Strangers coming up and touching, babies are very weak, kids have weaker immune systems. Even with family too, sometimes your kid might say, oh, auntie always comes over to me and kisses me with red lipstick all over my face. And mom, it makes me uncomfortable. And in the past, a lot of people used to say, well, she's your auntie, so you'd better take
it's
those
okay,
kisses.
yeah.
It's okay. But it does seem to be a change that nowadays, okay, if an adult in your life makes you uncomfortable, you don't have to let your auntie kiss you, but
Yeah.
tell her. So
I think
making that-
the older generation are sort of realizing that we live in different ages, we live in different, we live in different worlds, and they kind of like that sometimes that what the word that they actually use on me, something young people, it feels so disattached with everything, because
interesting.
older generation would want to actually attach themselves to every single thing that's happening within the family, but now
Yes.
they were saying I have to learn to disattach myself.
Right.
That's, I don't know if that's something good or if that's something bad, but since we're talking about boundaries, we just have to keep each other's boundaries and
Right.
make clear that you actually say it out loud.
Right, exactly. So you make sure that you tell, be ready. Like we said before, be prepared for some pushback. But because the older generation, they've been around for a long time and they feel, I know what
I'm
is
doing.
right. I
Yeah.
know what I'm doing. But if it makes you uncomfortable, speak out a little bit. Just talk with care.
Yeah, talk with care. But as I have said, a lot of the older generation these days actually are realizing the fact that we are very much different and they're more open, more liberated these days as well. So, give it a try. Well, thank you very much, Jem. It's so nice to see you today. And of course, I'm going to see you on Monday, or is it on another Monday?
Another Monday. I'll see you in a little bit.
All right. Well, that's everything that we have for you here. I'm still getting used to this MWF thing here in our show, but I'm probably gonna get used to it. But you can re-listen or, of course, download this episode on Patbang. That's PODBBANG. And you can find On the Pulse and in our interview audio clips on the Diverse Voices page. This has been Jasmine with our producer, Yumina Ryder Nile, our sound engineer, of course, Jem here in the studio. Make sure to join us once again tomorrow at 4 p.m. We'll leave you with a song. This is Humming One Stereo with Boundary. Love you all.